Chapter 11, Exposed. On Monday, September 3rd, 2001, I stopped by the home of Lieutenant Lewis, where I found him very angry. He told me that when Warden Lamarque found out that he had Hernandez sign off for him on the Category 2 investigation, Lamarque relieved Lewis of control for the Investigative Services Unit, making himself in command. Lewis then showed me a memorandum he wrote to Captain Miles Moore and Warden Lamarque before he requested the Category 2 investigation. From Lieutenant Lewis to Internal Affairs Captain Miles Moore, CC, Warden Lamarque. Confidential. Introduction of weapons into the institution. On May 29, 2001, I received information from Correctional Sergeant C. Donahue, Squad Sergeant, that a knife had been brought into the institution on May 25, 2001 by Investigative Services Unit Officers A. Ivanich, W. Faulkner, and M. Lashkov. The information indicated the knife was green in color and inscribed with the number 723. This knife was presented to the Correctional Sergeant J. Salea in the Investigative Services Squad Sergeant's office. Based upon this information, I instructed Correctional Sergeant C. Donahue to contact the trophy shop, Salinas Valley Trophies, Salinas, California, where the plaque was inscribed for Sergeant Celia to ascertain if a knife was engraved. Sergeant Donahue made contact via telephone and confirmed a knife and plaque had been inscribed at the business. Sergeant Donahue and A. Millbrooks were dispatched to the business and obtained the original work order for the knife, which indicated a description of the knife and confirmed the requesting engraving of 723. The purchase order had the signature of Investigative Services Unit Officer W. Faulkner. The owner of the business positively identified Officer Faulkner via photograph as the individual that ordered and picked up the knife. On May 29, 2001, I met with Warden A. Lamarque and fully apprised him of this developing information. During this meeting, I re-emphasized my concerns relative to my previous discussions and requesting to reassign ISU officers A. Ivanich, W. Faulkner, and M. Lashkov based upon their affiliation with the group 723 Green Wall. I informed Warden Lamarque during this discussion I would be contacting Special Agent T. Knight, OIA, relevant to this occurrence based upon the open, ongoing investigation relevant to the activities of the group of officers affiliated with the Green Wall 723 at Salinas Valley State Prison. On May 29, 2001, I personally reviewed the purchase order retrieved from Salinas Valley Trophies. After this review, myself and Sergeant Donahue and Middlebrooks met with Chief Deputy Warden R. Hernandez and briefed him on the occurrence. Additionally, a photocopy of the purchase order was provided to him for review and discussion with Warden Lamarque. Based upon Officer Faulkner being the assigned ISU evidence officer, I instructed Sergeant Donahue to maintain possession of the purchase order. Warden Lamarque met with Sergeant Donahue during the afternoon and instructed him to reassign all three officers from the investigation unit based upon this development and the evidence presented. On Monday, June 4, 2001, I contacted Captain M. Moore via telephone at his residence and apprised him of this knife incident. Per Captain Moore's direction, I contacted Special Agent T. Knight and apprised him of the discovery of the introduction of the knife and purchase order. Agent Knight consulted with his supervisor, Senior Special Agent J. Negretti, and instructed me to mail all supporting evidence to his office. Lieutenant Lewis explained to me that he attempted to follow the chain of command when he wrote the memorandum to Captain Moore and Warden Lamarque, but they did nothing. As a result of their lack of action, only then did Lewis reach out to higher authorities, the Office of Internal Affairs. Not only did Lamarque relieve Lewis of control, he called Sergeant Donahue during that same afternoon and instructed him to reassign all three of the officers from ISU based upon the development and the evidence presented. Finally, I thought it was about fucking time Lamarque did something about this, but I wondered if Lamarque was just doing this to shut everyone up. Why only now did he take action? Was it to show Internal Affairs that he was handling the situation in the event they followed up with the report? Lieutenant Lewis had asked me for my advice, not only because we were good friends, but because we trusted each other. I told him to follow his instincts and hold on to his ethical standards. If the warden wasn't going to listen to him, he could always go to the regional administrator with his evidence. Eventually, Lieutenant Lewis went to the regional administrator. Soon after, Warden Lamarcky received a phone call from the regional administrator, Richard Early, telling him that Lieutenant Lewis was transferred to Avenal State Prison and he would not be returning back to Salinas Valley State Prison. With Lieutenant Greg Lewis gone, I was the only one left to fight the battle against the Green Wall. On Friday, September 7, 2001, I was ordered by Warden Lamarcky to prepare a report about my knowledge of any inappropriate and illegal activity by correctional officers that threaten the health or safety of inmates, employees, or the public. He specifically wanted me to include in my report what had taken place at Lieutenant Lewis's home, and the report Lieutenant Lewis had me write. I wrote the report as instructed and stamped it confidential on both top and bottom pages and kept a copy for myself. I was under the impression that this report for Warden Lamarcky was to assist with the investigation. Little did I know, Warden Lamarcky only wanted me to write this report to reveal that Lieutenant Lewis had exposed confidential information to me. Although Lewis had good intentions, I was not authorized to know details about certain events taking place within the prison, and Lamarcky fooled me in exposing Lewis. In further attempts to make it look like they were handling the Green Wall situation, Captain Moore held a meeting with Sergeant Donahue and Lieutenant Kim, calling on ISU Officer Steve Archibald. In small talk and friendly chatter, Archibald had previously shared information with me about what was going on in the ISU. The sharing of information between departments was prohibited. While I was previously a part of the ISU squad, since resigning, I was now technically a line staff member. Since I had mentioned Archibald and details he had shared with me as evidence in my report written for Warden Lamarcky, Captain Moore released him from the ISU. Even worse, during the meeting, Captain Moore intentionally left my report open on his desk in plain sight for Archibald to see. Sergeant Donahue and Lieutenant Kim were shocked by the captain's behavior, his blatant disregard for confidentiality, deliberately jeopardizing my safety. Livid, Archibald confronted me immediately. He told me about the meeting and how he was released from the ISU all because of me, because I ratted him out. He screamed at me. He was enraged, wild. I was confused and attempted to explain when he started quoting my exact words. Words that I had written in my confidential report for the warden. Now I was furious. Warden Lamarcky and Captain Moore threw me right under the bus. I contacted Internal Affairs Sergeant Azel Middlebrooks at once. The minute he heard my hysterics over the phone, he met me at the Sallyport. Middlebrooks immediately contacted his acquaintance from the Office of Inspector General, Senior Inspector General Richard Ramsdale. He set up a meeting between the two of us at a designated location away from the prison to discuss the Green Wall and their activities. We met that night at a restaurant parking lot in King City, 30 miles south of the prison. I waited until a black SUV pulled alongside my vehicle. Richard Ramsdale showed me his identification and asked me if I could sit in the passenger side of his vehicle to begin the interview. Inspector General David Grant was sitting in the back seat. Ramsdale started off by saying how he appreciated my cooperation with him and the Inspector General's office, and that this meeting would be regarded extremely confidential. He informed me the investigation that they were conducting on the Green Wall, Salinas Valley State Prison, and on a group of correctional officers, as well as management, that was condoning illegal activities against inmates and staff. I asked him if I was the only one that came forward about the Green Wall. Ramsdale revealed I wasn't. A certain lieutenant was also cooperating with them. The recorded interview lasted about 2 hours. At the conclusion of the interview, they asked me to write down everything I stated during the interview and to get it to him right away. Ramsdale also told me to contact him immediately if anyone threatened me, and they would move me to a safer place for my own protection. 4 months later, on Monday, January 14, 2002, 6 unmarked government vehicles pulled onto the prison grounds. They were from the Office of Inspector General out of Sacramento, California, working directly for the governor's office, completely independent from the California Department of Corrections. Investigating case number 01/177 at Salinas Valley State Prison were the following investigators and their title: Barbara Moore, Deputy Inspector General in charge; David Grant, Deputy Inspector General Senior; Richard Ramsdell, Deputy Inspector General Senior; David Fango, Deputy Inspector General; Lisa Heinz, Deputy Inspector General; Ken Bear, Deputy Inspector; Tina Gonzalez, Deputy Inspector; Thomas Garcia, Associate Deputy Inspector General; Gwen Werner, Associate Deputy Inspector General. Their arrival was startling. No one, not even the warden, was forewarned. As the investigators entered, they all had designated assignments. They rushed the Investigative Services Unit and instructed all officers to stop what they were doing and to leave the unit immediately, the captain of the unit included. Later that afternoon, to my honor, I received several threatening phone calls from anonymous callers. "Baraka, you rat. You brought the Inspector General's office to our prison. You better watch every step you take." I immediately called Middlebrooks to inform him I was receiving threatening calls at my post. I demanded to know what the hell was going on at the prison. Middlebrooks told me that the Inspector General's office raided the Investigative Services Unit looking for evidence against the Green Wall and certain officers affiliated with the gang. That, however, wasn't the information I was looking for. How in the hell did these anonymous officers that called me associate me with the raid? I thought the meeting I had with Ramsdell and the Inspector's General office was confidential. In the next few weeks, I received 3 separate letters telling me to watch my back inside of the prison because staff had me as a marked man. The first letter I received was from my prior investigative partner, Officer Andy Carriaga. He informed me that while on Facility 8 Yard, he witnessed Officer Archibald in a serious conversation with Officer Barbudo, telling Barbudo that he was removed from ISU because of me. He continued to tell him how he even read the actual report I had written to the warden. The second document was from Officer E. Tiller, who at the time worked at the Central Infirmary Center. According to Officer Tiller, she informed Officer Atkins, who was her relief for the next shift when I was due to report. She said Officer Atkins expressed ill feelings towards working with me. Further, that Officer Atkins went on to say how I told Lieutenant Lewis by writing up a report on him after he revealed confidential information to me and that I was always telling on someone. Officer Tiller informed me that Officer Atkins' statements seemed as if Atkins was going to try to cause some sort of trouble with me and she didn't want me to enter into a hostile environment. After receiving her letter, I requested to be reassigned to the front entrance and have another officer work my position. I wanted to avoid Officer Atkins and any trouble he would try to cause me. The last written document I received was from Sergeant Gomez. This is a documented record of the discussion we had in regards to the staff making off-the-cuff comments that I heard in passing claiming you are a snitch. I have some serious concerns as to this affecting you at work, and as a supervisor, I must document this for your protection. Many times, staff can say comments without knowing the full facts and not knowing the damage they can inflict by spreading rumors. This is why I need to inform you as to what is being said about you out of respect for you as an officer and as a friend as well. Should you need any assistance or help, please do not hesitate to contact me at any time. I continued to receive threatening phone calls. The word was out. Everyone at the prison was aware of the situation. No one knew the details or the true story, but everyone saw me as a traitor. This was when my paranoia set in. This was when I started to constantly look over my shoulder. This was when I began checking underneath my car every morning. Shortly after the raid, Richard Ramsdell and his team arrived back at the prison to serve subpoenas to the officers and staff that were involved with the Green Wall. The subpoenas went all the way up the chain of command to the warden's office. They were to be interviewed by the Office of the Inspector General on suspected criminal behavior against inmates. All hell had broken loose. I had to get out of the prison immediately. I was already receiving threats, my safety was compromised, and I feared what would happen next. When I advised Middlebrooks about the worsening situation and his response was for me to chill out, I was frantic. I demanded he tell Ramsdell about what was going on. When he ignored my repeated requests, I decided to contact Ramsdell on my own. One day, I made my way to the administrative building to locate Ramsdell myself. In the staff cafeteria, I saw Ramsdale and his partner, Inspector General David Grant. I pulled up a chair, told him about the threatening phone calls I had received and letters from fellow officers warning me, and how I now feared for my life at the prison. I was astonished when Ramsdale seemed like he didn't care what I had to say. I actually felt like he was brushing me off. I reminded him of his promise to remove me from the prison if I felt my life was in danger. Finally, Ramsdale said he would look into it right away. Days passed without no word from Ramsdale on my transfer. I felt lied to. I felt used. I contacted Middlebrooks again and told him that if he did not help me transfer from the prison, I would go over his head for help and then go to the media about what was going on at the prison. I needed help. I contacted my old friend Joe Reynoso, who was working as a special agent for a unit called the Special Services Unit, SSU, was a hand-picked unit responsible for investigating all aspects of the California Department of Corrections. When I got him on the phone, I informed him of the events that took place and the situation I was in. Reynoso immediately called his boss. Whatever Reynoso did got the ball rolling. I received a phone call from Middlebrooks that same day asking me where I wanted to be transferred. I told Middlebrooks that I wanted to go to Pleasant Valley State Prison. I was told that Warden Lamarche was hesitant to sign off on my transfer. However, once told about the bigger problems he would face if I stayed, he quickly agreed.